Hello future CA, welcome back to my channel again, your one-stop guide for everything related to CA exams. So if you are preparing for the CA Inter Income Tax Law, this video is going to be very important for you. So in this video we are going to discuss some of the commonly committed errors and the important areas in Chapter 3 Unit 1, that is salary. And these points are based on the points that were highlighted by the ICAI faculty in the BOS fortnight webinar. So salary is a very important chapter, but it is also quite lengthy. With the default tax regime and the optional tax regime, the chapter can sometimes become confusing. So let's understand how you can organize these provisions, avoid common mistakes, and improve your scores in the examination. So guys, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe for more CA exam related guidance, tips and strategies. So I have prepared a last 4.5 day revision planner for the CA Inter Advanced Accounting. This is for September 26 exam and the planner starts from 28th of August. So in the planner from 28th August to 31st August, I have covered the whole day, and for the 1st of September the planner covers the first half of the day because the exam is in the second half. So in this planner I have given slots for revising each chapter and each unit, and there are also separate slots for revising RTP, MTP, previous exam paper, annexure and schedule 3 of the Companies Act. So if you want a structured and stress-free revision planner, the link is in the description and the pinned comments below. Do check it out. So the first important point is the difference between the default tax regime and the optional tax regime. So because the salary chapter contains a large number of exemptions, allowances and deduction, you may often get confused about what is available under which regime. A very simple technique suggested is to prepare a short comparison sheet. So write down the exemptions, deductions and allowances that you cannot claim under the default tax regime and keep this at the beginning of your salary notes. This way, whenever you solve a salary question, your first question in your mind should be, am I solving this question under the default tax regime or the optional tax regime? So once you identify this, you can immediately recall which provisions are applicable and which ones you need to ignore. One of the most important differences you need to remember is the standard deduction. So it was noticed that most of the students get confused in the standard deduction part. Under the optional tax regime, the standard deduction is rupees 50,000 or the amount of salary whichever is lower. Under the default tax regime, the standard deduction is rupees 75,000 or amount of salary whichever is lower. So this is one of those provisions that you should have clearly highlighted in your notes. When you are solving a practical question in the exam, don't mechanically apply the same standard deduction in every case. First identify the applicable tax regime and then apply the correct provision. Another major area where students make mistakes are allowances. So there are several allowances under salary, and their treatment can differ depending upon the applicable tax regime. For example, it was noticed that students often remember the exemption available for house rent allowance, but forget that its treatment changes under the default tax regime. Similarly, certain allowances that may be relevant under the optional tax regime are not available in the same manner under the default regime. Therefore, don't just memorize individual allowances. Instead, prepare a simple table: allowances, condition and exemption and applicable regime. This will make the revision much easier. So in this table format, you can prepare the notes so that you can revise this one day before the exam. And the next point is, there are also certain specific allowances that you should understand properly. For example, the allowance relating to transportation for a person with disability has specific condition attached to it and is treated differently from ordinary transport related allowances. So the important point here is, don't learn the name of an allowance in isolation. Understand who is eligible, what is the limit, What conditions need to be satisfied? Under which tax regime is it available? This approach will help you avoid unnecessary mistakes in practical questions. So, salary is a very huge chapter with a lot of provisions. So, instead of trying to remember everything as a separate provision, create a mind map of the entire chapter. So, you can broadly divide the salary into the following areas. Basic salary. Then move on to allowances. Under allowances, remember the relevant exemption, provisions and conditions. Then comes perquisites. Here valuation rules are extremely important. Then you have retirement benefits. And finally the RPF and deduction. So your overall salary mind map can look like basic salary, allowances, perquisites, retirement benefits, RPF and deductions. So once you have this structure in your mind, you will know exactly where each provision fits. Another important component of salary is perquisites. There are several valuation rules, but some areas are frequently tested through practical questions. One important area is motor car valuation. So you should be very clear about the different situations involved in motor car valuation and how the valuation changes depending upon the facts of the case. Similarly, interest-free or concessional loan-related perquisites are another area that requires proper understanding. Don't simply memorize the final figures. Understand the logic behind the valuation rules and different conditions involved. The next important point mentioned was understand the why behind the provision. So this is very important. So this is a very important learning technique highlighted in the discussion. When you come across different valuation rates or different limits, don't just ask what is the rate. Also ask why is this rate different. This is often a practical background behind these provisions. When you connect the provisions with its underlying concepts or practical situation, it becomes much easier to remember. So this is especially useful in income tax because many provisions involve different conditions, limits and rate. Instead of trying to memorize isolated numbers, try to understand the reasoning and the practical background behind them. The next important area is the retirement benefit. So some of the commonly tested areas include gratuity, leave encashment, compensation related provisions, retirement benefit related calculation. So among these, gratuity and leave encashment are particularly important areas to practice. Don't restrict your preparation to reading the provisions. You have to solve practical questions so that you become comfortable applying the relevant conditions, limits and calculation in the examination. So after retirement benefits, next make sure you cover the recognized provident fund, that is the RPF and deduction. So these areas can involve multiple conditions and calculations. So you should avoid studying them just before the exam. So your final salary revision should therefore include the following: basic salary plus allowances plus perquisites plus retirement plus RPF plus deductions. If these 6 areas are properly organized in your mind, this chapter becomes much more manageable. Now here's a simple revision strategy that you can follow for this chapter before the exam. Step number 1, prepare a one-page regime comparison. So at the beginning of your salary notes, keep a one-page comparison of default tax regime and the optional tax regime. So in this, clearly mark the exemptions not available, deductions not available, allowances affected, standard deduction and other important differences. Step number 2, create a salary mind map. So create one page containing basic salary, allowances, perquisites, retirement benefit, RPF and deductions. Step number 3, practice practical question. So after revising each section, it is very important to solve the practical question. And while solving the practical question, ensure you pay special attention to allowance exemption, perquisite valuation, motor car, loans, gratuity, leave encashment, retirement benefits, RPF deductions. Step number 4. Revise your mistakes. So maintain a small salary mistakes page. Wherever you make a mistake in the question, write down the reason. For example, wrong regime, forgot the condition, applied wrong limit, missed exemption condition, used wrong valuation rule, and so on. So whatever error you had done, note that down and revise this page before your examination so that you do not make these errors in the exam. So the biggest mistake students make in the salary chapter is trying to memorize every provision separately. Instead of this, connect the provisions and create a structure. Think of this chapter as follows: salary, then basic salary, allowances, perquisites, retirement benefits, recognized provident fund, and deduction. And before solving any practical question, always ask which tax regime is applicable. This one question can prevent several errors. Also remember to understand the background and practical logic behind the provisions, rather than simply memorizing the rates and the limits. So that's how you can approach the salary chapter more effectively and avoid some of the commonly committed errors highlighted by the ICAI. So if you are preparing for the CA Inter exam, make sure you revise the regime-wise differences, practice the important practical areas, and keep one-page summary for quick revision. I hope this video will help you to improve your preparation and increase your scores in the income tax law. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video and also subscribe to the channel. And also share the video with your CA Inter friends. All the best for your preparation. Keep studying, keep practicing, and I will see you all in the next video.